Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. We are back for the next session of the Aurora Conference. What does greening the supply chain have to do with me? We're very excited to have our panelists of speakers, and I'm going to start off by introducing Jennifer Barnes, who is Supplier Diversity and Sustainability Coordinator at the University of Pittsburgh. Jennifer joined the University of Pittsburgh in 2019 as the Supplier Diversity and Sustainability Coordinator. She works with the procurement team in purchasing services and strategic sourcing to advance socially and environmentally responsible purchasing. In her role, Jennifer collaborates with university departments and major contracted suppliers to track, analyze, and increase diverse and sustainable spend. She is also a member of the Chancellor's Advisory Council on Sustainability and focuses on carbon offsets. Trained as a city planner, Jennifer has a background in community development, economic development, and land use planning, focusing on the reuse of contaminated and blighted properties. She has led several collaborative historical planning and research efforts with nonprofit institutions, community groups, and public agencies in Chicago, Oakland, and New Orleans prior to moving to Pittsburgh. Locally, she has designed initiatives to increase diversity in construction businesses, and workforce in the Hill District, Larimer, and Homewood neighborhoods. She is a California native with a Bachelor's of Arts degree from the University of Chicago and a Master's of City Planning degree from the University of California at Berkeley. Wow, what a resume. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm honored to be able to moderate or facilitate today's session. Sustainability is a personal interest of mine, and I'm so happy to be at Pitt and have the opportunity to work in sustainability as it relates to small businesses. My family is full of entrepreneurs, like most of you that are represented today, and I think it's so important to expand our understanding of what it is to do business, especially as it relates to the environment. So I wanted to make sure that we were able to have a great conversation and make sure that we're able to really understand either what these major companies are looking for as far as sustainability, how to increase and familiarize yourselves with sustainability in your own business areas, and ask as many questions as you can of the people on the panel today. So without any further ado, what we're going to do for the format is to go through an introduction. So I'll introduce Aurora, Julia, and then Elizabeth. And Aurora and Julia both have a quick presentation for you about their areas. Then we'll come back. I have a poll for everybody to ask a little bit more about what industries are represented in today's session. And then we can just jump into Q&A and really just have a good conversation for the majority of our time. So I'll start with Aurora. Hi, Aurora. We work together at Pitt, so I have a little bit of a cheat sheet on her, but I will read her bio to everyone. Aurora Cherrard is the Director of Sustainability at the University of Pittsburgh, leading Pitt's Office of Sustainability, cross-departmental sustainability staff, and university-wide sustainability strategy, activities, policy, collaborations, and partnerships. But that sounds like a lot. It is. Dr. Aurora Cherrard is very busy. She is leading the Pitt Sustainability Plan, and she guides those efforts with 61 sustainability goals, and they all are at the intersection of equity, environment, and economics. Dr. Cherrard holds a master's and PhD in civil and environmental engineering with an emphasis in green design from Carnegie Mellon University, as well as a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Tulane University. She serves on several boards and committees, including the Higher Education Climate Consortium, Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission, Fair Shake Environmental Legal Services Board of Directors, Will Allen Foundation's Board of Directors, the International Living Futures Institute's Pittsburgh's Living Product Hub Advisory Council, and the Allegheny Conference on Community Development Sustainability Committee. Hi, Aurora. Welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work at Pitt?
Hi, and thanks for having me. Here we go. Sharing on a new platform, it's always fun. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about not just the work that I do at Pitt, But the work that Jennifer and I do together and a whole team of folks are perpetuating across the University of Pittsburgh. So, just bringing us all up to speed, the University of Pittsburgh was founded in 1787. We have over 130 buildings, 145 acres, about 13,500 faculty, just under 30,000 students. We're in the Oakland neighborhood of Pittsburgh, which is the third largest business district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And, we're trying to really embed sustainability in everything that we do as an institution. So what does that mean? Sustainability at Pitt means balancing equity, environment, and economics so current and future generations can thrive. We take that three-legged stool pretty seriously, and our team ensures that each of those components are brought up in conversations across the university. Over the years, we've got badges in the world of higher education sustainability, just like there are badges and certifications in business as well. These are some of the ones that we have and are continuing to improve on as an institution. If you're looking to serve higher education sustainability, I would point you to STARS. ASHE STARS is the big one that a lot of the rest of these roll up into. So at Pitt, our sustainability journey is guided by the Pitt Sustainability Plan, which was finalized in 2018, actually before I started at Pitt. It really crosses that whole slate of sustainability, including traditional sustainability activities that you might find in stewardship. We're an academic institution, so we obviously try to pull sustainability into research, teaching, learning, partnerships, our work globally. But then we also know that sustainability is about people, right? So we focus a lot on food, health and wellness, equity and access, and really just making sure that people are aware of what we're doing as an institution. We have 61 goals in the Pitt Sustainability Plan. I'm not going to take you through all of those today, but I'm going to use some as an example just to show you how we think about sustainability and procurement at Pitt. There's a very simple goal that says integrate sustainability into university procurement. So what does that mean? We've been doing that in a lot of ways, and actually Jennifer over the past several years has been doing this very deeply, both with specific supplier agreements that we put out for bid and request for proposals, but also across campus, just really working with each department and making sure that they understand what both sustainable and diverse purchasing means, how those things work together, how they work with local procurement and our partnerships there. And also working with these major contracted suppliers that we have as an institution, big scientific supply contracts, our large dining contract, and really making sure that sustainability is embedded in that work that we do as an institution. On diversity specifically, I want to hit this because, Jennifer's title speaks to this really well. She's both diversity and sustainability. We see these things together. We talk about them together as part of our work. Last year, we actually put out a public dashboard where you can see our minority and women-owned business spend as a university and how that's evolving and changing over the years. And you should expect those fiscal year 21 numbers up there pretty soon. We do separate out construction because that's a very different animal, as some of you may know. We've also embedded sustainability into a lot of our sustainability work at the university. And I just wanted to call out, we have a number of governance committees and things like that. Each of those, we made sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion was included in that committee work. So whether it's focused on active mobility, pollinators, trees, our work chasing carbon neutrality by 2037, we also have diversity, equity, inclusion as part of that. That's a big part of our sustainability work. A lot of the other way that we meet people on campus, the University of Pittsburgh doesn't necessarily have centralized procurement requirements all the time. We do for certain things, but there's an economy of choice, and different customers on campus want different things for different purposes. So we really try to meet people where they are at Pitt in terms of sustainability and give them opportunities to engage in our culture of sustainability that we're trying to build. So whether it's an office or a laboratory or a student organization, we're really trying to give people those doors into the sustainability conversation so they can make their decisions better where they are with their teams on a daily basis. One of those examples is related to food systems. So we have a couple food specific goals, one related to real food, which is basically local fare, ecologically sound and humane, and the other one related to just reducing the greenhouse gas footprint of the meals that we serve on campus, both through catering and dining services. So these are kind of wonky numeric goals with baselines. We track them very nerdily behind the scenes with all sorts of procurement tallies, and we also put that information out in the public domain, right? So we have these goals as an institution. They depend on the behavior of PIT employees and procurement decisions, but then we report out overall on how we're doing on each of those. And you can see our real food goal on the side here. We were tracking it previously just at our largest dining hall. We hit our goal there, and then we expanded out across campus, which is a different type of challenge. And then, I talked about plant forward eating. This is a challenge for people everywhere, but it's a big global impact on carbon footprint. We were one of the first 3 universities to sign on to the Cool Food Pledge a couple of years ago, committing to reduce the greenhouse gas footprint of what we serve on campus 25% by 2030. Like I said, we're only one of 3 universities. There are a lot of hotel chains and businesses and others signed up for this as well. So if you're in the dining space, I would definitely check it out. We partner with the World Resources Institute on this program. One of our newest and biggest goals is striving towards carbon neutrality by 2037 while reducing greenhouse gas emissions 50% by 2030. We're looking at how to do this as an institution across the board. So whether it's our buildings and reducing demand there, whether it's cleaning our supply, both on site, in the region and just through procurement, or making low carbon connections for commuting and air travel. We're really looking at what our carbon footprint looks like as an institution and how to reduce that with every small decision. A really good example here is paper used to be 1% of our greenhouse gas footprint as an institution, which is really big for a single item. And through a number of strategies over the past several years, both printing reduction, increase of recycled content print, and a switch to tree zero carbon neutral paper, which is made from sugarcane waste, we've been able to not eliminate, but severely reduce our focus on paper as part of that work. We also look at our buildings for energy performance very closely and put that information out in the public domain for how we're doing. So our facilities, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, are a big focus of our work in terms of sustainability, but they're certainly not the only one. One of those goals is related to facilities. We pursue LEED certification for all big projects at the university. So if you're in the building and construction industry, if you're making building products, we're certainly looking at the health and performance of all of those for all renovation and new construction projects at the university. LEED is the dominating green building standard there, but we also chase energy and water performance at the university. Relatedly, where we're going in the future is really looking at commuter and direct transportation and what that means for us in terms of vehicles. And this is going to cue up Elizabeth very nicely for what Duquesne Light is doing. But we're looking at electric vehicles and what does building electrification and vehicle electrification mean for us as an institution? What can help us meet our goals there in terms of shuttles and box trucks and different types of on-campus vehicles? And how can we maybe move away from vehicles and onto bikes, even for on-campus delivery? We just bought our first on-campus electric cargo bike that's riding around campus now, and it's fun and it's easy, and it reduces local air pollutants, so it's great. And everything that I've said today, it sort of maybe shows you that at Pitt, as we focus on those 3 pillars of sustainability, equity, environment, and economics, we're really also focused on transparently communicating both internal to the university and external on how we're doing, right? And really growing the knowledge and capacity to achieve these huge goals that we have in front of us as an institution and that we need to meet both in the US and globally. And so I think that's it. My 10 minutes are up, and I will see the floor and do questions later, right?
Sure. Thanks, Aurora.
Yeah.
Next, I will introduce Julia Saints. Sorry, Julia, I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name, but I think that's right. She is the Sustainability Manager for Evoqua. Julia is a systems thinker with a passion for making positive change within organizations. Her work has helped universities, government, nonprofit, and corporates drive meaningful change across environmental and social targets. By focusing on building partnerships, stakeholder engagement, and connecting the dots, Julia brings diverse stakeholders together to align around common goals. Julia holds a BS in Geoenvironmental Studies, a BA in History, and a Master's in Sustainability Studies. She is the Sustainability Manager at Evoqua Water Technology, which is a global company headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Julia, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Evoqua and your work there?
Thanks so much for having me. Let me go ahead and try to share screen here. All right, if you could give me a nod, if you can see that. Perfect, thanks. Okay, so thanks so much for having me here today. It's so exciting just to listen to some of the other speakers and hear about all of the exciting things happening at Pitt. And then I'm really excited to hear what Elizabeth has going on at Duquesne as well. We are really early on our journey for supplier diversity in particular, but sustainability, we have a lot going on, and we're moving really quickly at Evoqua. So again, just really excited to be here and to do a lot of listening and to share generally where we are too. So some of you may know about Evoqua, others may not. We are headquartered in Pittsburgh. We have 160 locations globally though. We have 4,000 employees. Our revenues generally around 1.4 billion, just to provide you some quick stats on where we are. And we provide water technology, the products, and also we service that technology for when it comes to water quality and quantity for a variety of markets. So we have a very unique opportunity to transform these different end markets to help them meet their sustainability goals when it comes to treating water. So treating, moving, pumping water can use a ton of energy, meaning that it contributes a ton of emissions to the world. So we have a unique opportunity to make that be more sustainable, which is very exciting. And this may look familiar because Aurora just presented something really similar, which is great that we're talking the same language. So often when people think of sustainability, they're just thinking about the E. They're just thinking about the environmental side, but really we can't forget about people, the social side. You know, you can call it social, you can call it equity, but whatever you call it, we can't forget about people within this equation, which is where supplier diversity really fits. And then also, so we call this the 3 E's. You can also call it within business. It often gets referred to as ESG. And then the G comes in here. It's portrayed as economic. Another way to think about it is good governance practices. So do you have good business practices? Do you have child labor within your supply chain? Those sorts of things can come up. Do you have conflict minerals, etc.? So again, just thinking of how are we thinking about sustainability? It's not just the environmental side. It's not just about greening our supply chain from the environmental side. It's also about thinking about the social impact as well. And at Evoqua, we're thinking about it as our handprint and our footprint. And for maybe Aurora could speak to this later. For Aurora's business, it might be thinking of how they do the academics. For us, it's thinking of, for our handprint, it's how do we deliver better water treatment to our customers. And then the footprint is how can we be a better business internally within our own operations. And then we align to, oh, pardon me, I think you were seeing maybe different slides too. Do you see the 3 circles now? Sorry, I had my slides mixed up. So we align to the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm not sure if anyone on the line has seen it. If you want to throw it into the chat, if you have seen the Sustainable Development Goals before, they are the little boxes on the end. These are something that if you haven't looked at these in your business, highly recommend it. How does your business align to? Awesome. I'm really glad to see Shannon's seen these before. So how does your business align to the Sustainable Development Goals? How are you working to meet these? For us, obviously SDG 6 around clean water and sanitation. This is definitely something that we align to, but also a few others. So I was just talking about the handprint and footprint. Here are just a few quick stats of how we're thinking about those and some of our efforts. So absolutely, we're thinking of water reuse. That's our business, right? And we're also trying to increase our water reuse within our own operations and as well for our own customers. And then we also consider safety. That gets wrapped up within our business. And then our handprint, that's how we're helping our customers be more sustainable. And we connect what we're doing to the Sustainable Development Goals. And our investors really appreciate that too. And then I wanted to share this too, because I think seeing this might be helpful to some folks on the call of what do we need help with from our own suppliers. So we need help within our own operations, within our own footprint, particularly around fleet. And Aurora mentioned this too. So our fleet makes up at least 30% of our footprint when it comes to emissions. So we know we're going to need help when it comes to reducing our idle time, because it's huge, because some of our service technicians are using it as their office. And then also when it comes to moving to EVs and at least hybrids in the future very quickly. And then we have some really unique processes that use a ton of natural gas and really high heat. So we're going to be needing help with that and reducing the emissions there. And then I mentioned our handprint. So we do create our own products in-house, but we create some systems that treat water. So we might buy a pump from somebody else. We might have our own filter press in-house, but we might buy somebody else's coupling here, right? So we're buying different pieces to build a full system that we then sell to a customer. So we need help with the different components and really want to make sure that the pumps, for instance, are more energy efficient. Therefore, they'll reduce the emissions when our customers are using them, and then are more water efficient too. So those are probably the two goals that our customers are really looking for, that we want to make sure we can pass on to them. And then the others that often come up are around waste and chemical usage as well, and reducing that. And then we would love to be able to use better materials in the future, whether it's higher recycled content or less reliance on conflict minerals. And then I'm really excited about, and we're getting some early questions about this now, but again, in the future, we really need to push to have better end-of-life plans for our products. Can we buy we're talking big machinery here. Can we buy a piece and then send it back to one of our suppliers at the end of its life, and then they take apart the components and then refurbish it, and maybe we can sell it back? So those are the sorts of things that we're thinking about. And happy to take any questions at the end.
Thanks, Julia. Okay, so our last speaker that I will introduce, and then we'll go on to a quick poll and then Q&A. So I'll introduce Dr. Elizabeth Cook. Elizabeth is the General Manager at Duquesne Light Company. And as General Manager of Advanced Grid Solutions for Duquesne Light, Elizabeth manages and leads efforts within the transmission and distribution, power grids, operations, and planning groups. To transform DLC, into a digital utility of the future, Elizabeth works with internal and external partnerships to collaborate with local, state, and federal planning entities, as well as universities and industry, to drive advanced grid solutions and to plan for the future power grid. In addition to her responsibilities at DLC, Elizabeth is a mother of 6, my goodness, a business owner, and a published author. Supplier. She holds a doctorate in electrical and computer engineering from the University of Pittsburgh. Hail to Pitt. Elizabeth, tell us about yourself and your work at Duquesne Light.
Okay. Hi there, everyone. So I guess my perspective is slightly different. I just want to share, as I entered into the utility space prior, I was a consultant where I traveled the world consulting utilities on how to interconnect wind and solar generation versus wind and solar as one of my partakes. And then coming to DLC, this is where I was born and raised. I wanted to limit my travel because of my children. And so I'm blessed with the job at Duquesne Light. In regards to, where I am now, I started as the transmission and then eventually the distribution planning manager. So what that job does is ultimately looks at the grid, understands how the grid is utilized and how we can optimize it for the future. And how can we connect not only customers as load, but what quickly became evident is how do we ensure that we're prepared and ready to connect the variable renewable energies at the edge of our grid. So as of last year, I got a new role under a new team that we've created called Advanced Grid Solutions. And really this team has been created to proactively implement and engage our community to connect these advanced technologies as a partnership. Because as we all know, especially if you think about how do we impact the supply chain, everyone needs electricity. And how that electricity is created, we must clean it up from a climate change perspective, right? There's very large, aggressive decarbonization goals from the transmission generation all the way down to how we use generation at the edge, also clean. So there's a ton of talk over the last 9 months. I think, it's really imploded in this space and really has driven a lot of our customers and our supply chains to start thinking about sustainability and carbon reduction plans. So I'll really speak to the project's perspective of what I'm doing. But before I dive into that, Duquesne Light's working through our public sustainability strategy and plan. But internally, we've been doing quite a bit of work. Our vision is more or less the power to grow a resilient and sustainable region through responsible environmental stewardship and stakeholder engagement. So those words are just exciting in itself, being that we're an electric utility who, quite honestly, we don't own generation. So we really have always been kind of unbiased towards what the generation fleet is. But as we're embracing the idea of, needing to embrace innovation and technology, and what that brings is renewable energy sources, this is the time to do it. And all signs are signifying that we're going in that direction. So we want to deliver on customer expectations, right? We want to ensure that it's accessible and our service is affordable, that we are creating open opportunity and avenues, and we're not a hindrance in connecting distributed renewable energy, that our customer relations stays true and strong. While we're doing that, we're strengthening our communities to electrify, which is the other end of the spectrum, right? Clean up the large fossil fuel fleets, and then at the edge, electrify the electrical sources. And while doing that, focusing on community development, especially in low-income neighborhoods, where that kind of investment and development hasn't really always been there in regards to how utilities have been positioned. And then we want to cultivate and engage a workforce in regards to how we recruit, how we develop, how we purchase, and then from our diverse suppliers, and then really our well-being in general. So I'm coming from the operations side. So I'm looking at the grid and studying it from a technical perspective, but I very quickly found in the last 9 months, there's a ton of regulatory, legislative, and really taking the signals from our customers that we serve of what they want to do. So we just want to be the subject matter experts of how to bring these devices and this new way of using energy onto the grid. Because as something probably Aurora has heard me say is, the grid is here today and it took 140 years to get to the way it is. Now we all need to work together to transform it into the grid of the future, which is this idea of interactive injecting electrons onto the distribution system instead of just absorbing them like it has been done over the last 140 years. So when I am thinking about the projects, what I'm trying to actively do from the utility side is engage in the development in the real estate world and start educating and showing the capabilities of how to electrify and how to be sustainable and reduce carbon content. And while doing that, we can help with, if you think about it, by driving an increased load or intermittent resources such as solar, battery, right, or electric vehicle charging that coming on and going off, we, the utility, want to be aware of it so that we can harden the supply to prepare for the change in demand. So that's kind of where I'm seeing the focus from a grid technologies perspective, is being more synergistic with our development side and business connections so that we're ready to embrace the clean energy technologies. And then while we're partnering with those projects, we're looking into, diverse and the D&I in our supply chain. I'm partnered up with our chief procurement officer, is really taking a strong hold on driving that within DLC when we're buying the equipment moving forward. So I think that's all I have for my introduction without my slides.
Okay.
So I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to answering questions.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I am going to actually post a poll for all of our guests today, just to give us a little bit more information about where you're coming from. So feel free to just answer quickly what industry you're representing. As you've heard from all three of the speakers so far, the areas that they cover are really broad. At Pitt, we talk about how Pitt's kind of like a small town. We buy what small towns would potentially buy, from, like lab equipment to vehicles to, instruments and food and all of those things in between. But I think it would be interesting to know what the people attending this session today, what industries you're representing, to give us a better idea of how to sort of curate our responses. And as the votes are coming in, there's only 6 so far. I'll give an example of how like an RFP would incorporate sustainability at Pitt. So as Valerie read, my role is in purchasing services. I'm responsible for connecting suppliers who are interested in doing business at Pitt, and also recruiting diverse suppliers, and also, as well as suppliers that have a sustainability focus or product. But I'm also tasked with influence the progress at Pitt to make sure that the policies and us seeking out updating contracts include some sustainability components. So Aurora alluded to our food services RFP. That was one example. Another example was like janitorial supplies, for example. And it's not just about like, how much are you going to charge us for bleach and gloves, but how much of your supplies that you sell are, have eco labels on them. How many of them are locally sourced? Are the toilet paper and paper towels that you supply, do they have the little core in the middle, or will they create waste? How much recycled content is included? Things like that aren't necessarily directly related to your business, but about the products that you are looking to sell. And then at Pitt, we would review the same list of items and requirements from every company that responds and judge them based on the content and their own mission, based, for whatever the industry is. So for food services, we really want to know how you prioritize plant forward meals, or how you deliver, or how packaging it. Do you have compostable items as a part of your regular to-go practice? And for janitorial supplies, like I mentioned, we really want to know what the recycled content is provided, or how many of your items that are offered in your catalog are from local companies, manufactured companies, or diverse suppliers. So all of those are going into how we judge and score companies that are interested in doing business with us. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're giving you information to either build your company or expand your services into a more sustainable way. So with that, it looks like most people are in other sectors. Maybe my polls weren't great, but so we'll talk as general. But I do want to encourage folks to ask questions in the chat or in the Q&A, because it'll allow us to really specifically address questions that you may have. But to get us started, I will ask a question of the group. Anyone, Elizabeth, Julia, or Aurora, feel free to answer. My first question for you all is, what do most suppliers think sustainability is versus what it actually is, from your perspectives?
I'll go first, since nobody else wants to. So, I mean, I would say it's not just suppliers, it's also, students and faculty and staff. I end up in a room with somebody, they're like, okay, great, I want to talk about environment all the way, right? I only want to talk recycled content or trees or pollinators or energy use. And I'm like, it's so much more. Let's talk about healthy materials. Let's talk about the diverse side of what you're doing. Let's talk about equity. Let's talk about, we're higher education, right? How are we partnering with like students on possible projects and faculty on possible research? But like that narrow, like, let's just focus about the environment. We're constantly like broadening that conversation up.
I'd say that same thing works for us. We did a materiality assessment in 2019, and that was one of our biggest findings, is that as an organization, you will ask one person their definition of sustainability and then someone else their definition, and it is entirely different. So we've had to do a lot of internal education around just when we say sustainability, what are we talking about? It's, holistic. It's those 3 E's. It's, you've heard it sometimes as the 3 P's. It's E, S, and G. So it's just really thinking about it holistically. Something that we like to do, and maybe it's helpful for the suppliers on the call, is to look at how is the business that you're trying to put an RFP into, how are they defining sustainability and what's important to them. For instance, from Elizabeth, we heard that electric vehicles are super important to Duquesne, and we could find that out from looking on their website, right? So their sustainability reports. So I stalk sustainability reports. I'm an avid stalker of other people's sustainability reports, and I coach others internally to also be an avid fan, I'll say, of other sustainability reports. And I encourage others to use that as a great resource to figure out how are other people defining sustainability and what's really material and important to them.
Julia, how would you advise the attendees to maybe work with one another, or do you think that there's space to create an ecosystem amongst different companies that will be able to better address the need of like an Evoqua or a Duquesne Light?
Great question. So there's definitely room for partnership. I've seen sustainability is one of the best collaborators that I've seen. It can bring competitors together. We've seen it in the steel industry. It can drive innovation where you would never see it. I mean, they're trying to do zero carbon steel. It's like, wait, what? But anyways, we've just seen some really unique collaboration in the sustainability space where you wouldn't even imagine it. 2 groups in Pittsburgh that we work with where we really see some neat collaboration is in Sustainable Pittsburgh. They have CEOs for sustainability, which if you want to get your CEO on there, it's a really great space to network, share best practices, and share your challenges. And they've come out with some awesome goals, and they'll be having the C-suite summit here in the fall. So it's a great way to just learn more about the organization. I highly, highly recommend it. And the entry is very low cost as well in comparison to others. The other one is the Pitt Center for Sustainable Business, which we are a part of. And that's been a really good opportunity. The fee to join is a little bit higher, although the meetings are very in-depth and are really, really valuable to share best practices and a great chance to do collaboration with larger companies. But at a local level, I think the CEOs for sustainability is a good one for smaller organizations as well. But if you're a larger, maybe the Pitt Center for Sustainable Business. I'm happy to chat about my experience with both of those. I've shared my email in the chat.
Thank you. Elizabeth, I would love to ask you, I know you talked about electric vehicles. At Duquesne Light, where do you think the largest areas of opportunity for business, like for RFPs or for seeking partners, what do small businesses really, or diverse businesses, or any business who's thinking about doing business with Duquesne Light, who has a goal of doing business with DLC, what are the areas of, or the topics of sustainability where they should focus their work or research moving forward?
So really coming from the operations side perspective, right? I mean, I think everything that supplies that other companies would need, right? That's set aside. But we're really actively engaged in electrification of their fleets. Not only our fleets, but promoting and incentivizing others to electrify. But a part of that is, we heavily need to understand how the system is going to be used. So sensoring tools, measurement metering, the powers of data science and data analytics as a service, how the chargers, we're not allowed to own the charging infrastructure. We can be make ready, but we need vendors to partner with who are actually going to install all of the charging infrastructure. And how we could probably best do that is the partnership and collaboration. So we know where these developments are happening before you're breaking ground, so that we can ensure and prepare the grid for that new load. We aren't allowed to own generation, but creating partnerships and awareness of where larger renewable projects are occurring so that we can be ahead of studying it. So, I mean, anything that has to deal with solar is also important. And then one big part we're really focused on is building electrification. But specifically, and DOE is really heavy in this, is how can we embrace buildings as an asset to the grid? So all of the gadgets and gizmos, not to be too high level, that go into a building that can communicate out so that that load can be managed from either a third party, a building owner, or the utility, so that if we need to offset loading of circuits as this loading grows, we're able to do. So that's, I guess, my perspective of what type of materials and services that we're really focused on to really embrace electrifying, the grid in a clean way. So I don't know if that's helpful.
That is, thank you. Speaking of buildings, Aurora, can you talk a little bit about, I think the majority of the folks here work in a building, and with your background, can you talk a little bit about business and sustainable business as it has to do with a physical space, construction, and day-to-day operations?
Sure. There's a lot there. And so what Jennifer is referring to is I worked for over a decade at Green Building Alliance, which if you're in the building industry, if you're making a building product, I saw somebody in the chat said they do electrical and commissioning, right? You want to make sure that Green Building Alliance, there are a lot of things happening in that space that Elizabeth referred to as well, that, Evoqua, supports, and, buildings overall contribute 40% of all the carbon that we use in the U.S. or that we produce in the U.S. Use 70% of all of the electricity, produce, I forget the waste number, 60% of all the waste. So the opportunity in the building industry is vast. And so in that space, sustainability has been baked in for a really long time. At Pitt, we're doing that in a lot of different ways by calling out, instead of saying it has to be XYZ product, we've been calling out performance for products and technologies. So saying it, we need to get here as a building, and in this product category, it needs to have, this acoustic rating or this durability rating, or, and letting the product sort of reach up to that with product level certifications. We do call out sort of preferred material content and manufacturer and assembly distance from the university. But we also are very interested in chemicals of concern and what's in those products, especially interior products, and are trying to really incorporate that into products in a different way. If you look in the university space, Harvard has actually taken a very hard line, as has the state of California, on chemicals of concern in building products. And that's definitely the next, well, I hate to say next realm because it's happening now, but it's a more forward-thinking approach to building products and really trying to avoid hazards indoors, but before they happen. I'm not sure if I hit everything there, Jennifer, but.
No, it was good. It was a good overview. I'm actually going to ask this last poll question. We have maybe about 5 minutes left or so, I think. I'm curious about if our attendees today have a sustainability plan or a statement that's already integrated in their business, or if that's something that, our speakers today can give a little bit of advice on how those could potentially grow to make them more competitive in a business environment. Julia, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so for us, sustainability really got jumps, and I'm very transparent and always try to be, because I think it's good to share where you are in your journey to help others. Like if you don't have this, don't be scared. Evoqua really got started on centralizing our sustainability program about 2 years ago. So if you don't have a plan, it's okay. Don't be scared. And we were really getting questions from our investors and from our customers who were saying, do you have a sustainability plan? What are you doing? And our employees as well. So we were hearing questions from our stakeholders asking us, Evoqua, what are you doing? So that's why we got started on this journey. And the first step that we took was a materiality assessment, which can get really, really complicated if you want it to. But really all it's asking is ask your stakeholders, whoever they are, ask them what's important when it comes to sustainability. Is it greenhouse gas emissions? Is it supplier diversity? Is it supplier ESG risk? Is it employee inclusion and diversity? Where is it? What is it within sustainability? Sustainability is really, really broad. And you have to, it's hard to do everything. So putting things on some order of, okay, we can't do everything at once, but what can we start with first? Materiality assessment's a really good way to start with that.
Thanks. Aurora, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh,
Elizabeth?
I'll just share, DLC is in the process of developing our sustainability plan. So when you said you're a stalker of sustainability plans, I'm like, I bet you didn't find ours. But it has been a very large lift, and we've also been through a few ownership and leadership changes in the last 18 months, and this has definitely been hot. So I've been involved all throughout, and really, we have support for multiple consultants. And as everyone's kind of saying, it's, there's environmental, social, and governance. And then if you put it on a matrix of what is the importance of a business success up to the importance of our stakeholders, you get real quick in a brainstorm session, you're at 50 different markers, right? Waste management all the way up to infrastructure reliability. So we've been working through different committees, and we've finalized on 10 strategic priorities. And then, we each of those priorities for the top one, affordability and access, renewable and distributed energy, community development, electrification, diversity and inclusion, and climate risk and resilience is kind of what popped up out of, but as I've heard, just you guys sharing, there's many others that we also embrace, but those are the top priorities that we're now creating a roadmap for. And every of those priorities has a leader. And then with that, we'll, finalize the document that we issues. So from the procurement side and understanding where we are when we're measuring our current supply chain, it's, we have that hat on that we're also evolving. So the expectation is those that we do dealings with are also evolving in the same space. We will be looking for the sustainability plans and checking those to make sure, we're all doing this collaboratively. So,
and we've learned a lot from our suppliers. We had a supplier sustainability summit where our CEO spoke to our suppliers and then afterwards came up to me and said, hey, we're doing X, Y, and Z. And it was super helpful because a lot of them were more advanced than us in different areas, and we were learning from each other, and that's been really helpful. Sorry, Aurora, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was perfect. I was actually going to say, Julia said this word, and I use it a lot, and it's journey. Sustainability is all about the journey, and every organization is on its own, and it has its own evolution, to and through and about sustainability. So wherever you are, as a company and an organization, I just say, we understand as sustainability directors and people at organization that you're on that journey, right? And it may not match up with exactly where we are in our vision, but we like to see that you've at least thought about it, that you're, trying to integrate those concepts into what you're doing as an organization, and even trying to respond when we say, what are you doing in this space? And you're like, well, we've tried to reduce office printing. That's a start, right? I mean, so maybe not every small business has a carbon goal. That's okay. We get it. We actually we did an RFP that Jennifer led for graphic designers earlier this year, and there was a whole slate that she reviewed, everything from we're a diverse business to we consider how things are printed to we purchase renewable electricity. That's okay. We like the ones that are at least have one foot in.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think the folks that are attending this session today are already interested in sustainability, so you're already are a little bit of ahead of the curve. But I think that what will make people more competitive even is to address what they're able to address, either as they present their company or as they present themselves in an RFP in response to doing business. And as Aurora said, when you think of graphic design on a computer, when somebody asks what are the sustainability practices of your company, usually people are like, that doesn't apply to me. I don't do anything related to sustainability. I just, design in Photoshop. But the most successful people that responded to that question talked about where their energy comes from, talked about their bike to work program for their employees. Like they talked about the plant-based inks in their printers and how they don't have desktop printers anymore. And they have one central waste basket for the office instead of one in everyone's office. Things like that are sustainability related that folks don't necessarily consider, but I would encourage everybody on the call today to really think about how sustainability is related to your company. If it's about the people, the government, if it's about the environment, all of those are great, but think about it as a whole. And what will really set you apart and set you up for review by an Evoqua or a Duquesne Light or for a PIT in the future is just the sheer evidence that it's something that you're considering as a part of the core of your business. I don't see any questions in the chat. Valerie, I think we're out of time today. Is that right? Or is there any last thoughts you wanted to give us? Sounds like
I'm coming back. Back.
Hi.
Hello. All these buttons, trying to find the right one is a little bit difficult sometimes. So hello, I want to thank everyone, number one, for being here. I'm off to the side, but that's fine. This has really been great. So sustainability is a passion project of mine from my days in construction. Originally, just being involved with green building and LEED. And so this has been something that we've seen grow and gain more traction and more importance. And then I'm a mother of, I don't know what generation they are, X, millennial. I don't think they're millennials. I'm too young to have millennials. But Z, I think I'm X. I'm confused. I never know. I have to go to Google to find out which one it is. But the point is, it's important to our next generation of leaders that are coming forward, because we have an obligation to leave the world better than what we inherited. And so sustainability in business and the intersection of supplier diversity and sustainability is critically important. And what we see are diverse businesses leading in this space and really driving a lot of the conversations that we're having now. And so I'm really excited, number one, to have this conversation with each of you, to see you as thought leaders, to see women leading this in this space. So that's awesome. Like I said, I'm a mom of two girls, so I'm all about girl power. And to connect it to our businesses, because I think although we're leading, diverse businesses are leading in this space, we're often not included in the conversations. And so I encourage the people that I know are, I don't want to have to call people out that may have some questions, but I encourage anyone who has questions in this to please raise your hand or add them to the chat, because I know there's some businesses. Blue Lake Clean Energy is on, Dennis Garrett, and his business model is focused on clean energy. He's in the clean energy space. He's looking at onshore and offshore wind and solar. We have a couple, James Bridges from Electrical Testing and Commissioning, who's out of Pittsburgh. Had an opportunity to sit with James last night, and his company is in this space as well. And we were talking about even like utilizing drones and how we're reducing how we inspect and test and engage in that way. So I know I said a lot, but I just wanted to add to the importance of this conversation and the work that is being done, and to encourage, not discourage, our business owners from finding space and place inside of the sustainability industry and opportunity, and to lead on it and to talk. I mean, we have, this brain trust of women right now who have really shared some extraordinary information with us. So thank you for being with us today, for agreeing to be in partnership with us. Yes, Pittsburgh Technology and Sustainability are two amazing organizations. There are numerous ones throughout the country. The Association of Blacks in Energy, which has also got a space around sustainability inside of their organization. So I just really want to thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to continuing our partnership with you. I know I said a lot. Anybody else have anything before we close out? All right. Well, I want to thank you all. I want to encourage everyone who is on now to join us for our last session of today, which is Show Your Hand, a deep dive discussion into the future of supplier diversity. Thank you, everyone. Be well, stay safe, be impactful. Bye-bye.